Thursday, April 13th, on the island of Nusa Lembongan off the coast of Bali in Indonesia. We have just survived a brutal and um, mysterious boat trip, which by mysterious, I mean nothing worked the way we were told it would.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
What a trip.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we wake up in the morning on Gili Trawangan of the three Gili Islands, and we are ready to take a ferry out because the night before we bought a ticket, and we were like, we want a one-way ticket.
And so the guy sold us supposedly the ticket for the fast boat, which would take 2 hours and would go straight from Gili Trawangan to Lembogan, the island of, I don't know, I'm not messing up how you say that. Anyways,
Nusa Lembongan.
yeah, it was supposed to take 2 hours straight, no transfers. And that is exactly not what happened.
Yeah, so we buy the ticket and pay the higher price for the direct ticket, and we wake up in the morning and we were out of there pretty much right on the dot, maybe 2 minutes over the line. But
Yeah, but it was
but
raining and it had
but
been
nobody
pouring
cares
earlier.
about being 2 minutes over the line in this part of the world. But yeah, it started pouring down, and we were just like, oh God, we have to take our luggage with the wheels through all these like cobbly, muddy streets with giant puddles and horse-drawn carriages splashing through them. And
Yeah.
yeah,
So luckily, by the time we left, the rain had settled down just a bit, so it was drizzling. But yeah, it was not fun trying to wheel our suitcases through the mud puddles, and at times having to totally pick up the suitcases and wheel them quite a ways, actually.
yeah. And we crammed all of our luggage into an already full cafe, and we had a light breakfast. And then after that, we went to the terminal, and that was just pandemonium, dude. There's so many people with luggage, and none of the lines were well structured. By lines, I mean queues of people lining up to get.
By queues, you mean a mass of people, like
Yeah,
not in lines.
so there's a lot of shouting and stuff. And sorry, people were just kind of making it up as they went along. They're like,
Yeah.
okay, you got to go here, you got to go here, you got to go. Okay, you got to exchange this for that. Like, oh, okay, come here.
Oh, wait,
Okay,
no.
don't come here. Actually, go behind this, and everything kept shifting and moving, and like the rules kept changing, and you know what? No one really blew their cool.
No,
No one did. Like none of the tourists. They're just kind of like, okay, whatever.
that's just how it goes. But
Yeah.
yeah, eventually we got the proper ticket and then the proper so-called line, and
We had to pay an exit fee
we had to pay
too.
an exit fee. So then we went through the little turnstile
Yeah, after
area.
trying to go through one turnstile area, and they were like, oh, actually, you got to go back and be in the way of all these people while they're going in one direction. You got to go in the other direction. And then they funneled us through another
Turnstile.
turnstile.
Yeah, so then we
Turnstile.
headed towards our boat where there was already a lot of people hanging out trying to load their suitcases and hand them to the guy who would put them on the roof of the boat. And we were out there for a bit, maybe 10 minutes, trying to get situated. And then the drizzle started picking up and it started raining a little bit harder. And people started getting out their raincoats and plastic bags. And we didn't have any of that. So we just started getting a little bit wet. And everybody started scurrying onto the boat as fast as they could at that point.
Dude, it was raining so hard that the sticker they put on my chest like peeled off. Well, it almost flew off into the water, and I had to like jump over and grab it, and then it just kind of disintegrated into my hand, and that was proof that I paid for the ticket. So I just kept it wadded up in my pocket. Anyway, we got into this boat, and they took our luggage and stuff, and we crammed into the back, and it's kind of a low ceiling, like 7 feet tall, and so
We were packed in there like sardines. I mean, I think there were two. There was an aisle, and on each side of the aisle was maybe like a 4 or 5 seater with people crammed in on each side. It must have been capacity for like maybe like 150 people down there. I mean, there's a lot of
Something
people.
like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
they make it look like there's an upper deck that's available, but I'm pretty sure only the crew goes up to this
Yeah, I don't know
upper
who went up
deck.
there.
You have to climb up a very slippery metallic ladder where each step is rounded with no traction. So, no. Anyway, we kicked off the boat and we bought the one way ticket from Gili Trawangan to Nusa
Lembongan. I don't know. I keep messing that
Oh
up.
boy,
Lembongan. Lembongan.
Lembongan.
I think we're saying it wrong.
No, it is Lembongan.
Yeah, something like this.
It might be Lembongan.
Yeah,
I don't
maybe it's
know.
like that.
Anyway, this boat takes off, and they're like, "All right, we need to." Well, I'm following it on my phone, and without any announcements, because there aren't any announcements. It's just people scurrying around and forcing us to go along with what the boat does.
What do you mean
They,
you're following it on your phone?
I'm following the GPS signal, like where we are
Oh, you pulled up the
in
map
the
on your phone.
Lombok Strait.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Okay.
and and we're not going directly to Nusa Lembongan.
No.
And instead, we're going to the other Gili Islands. And so it turns out that the ticket we bought to go directly to Nusa Lembongan,
Was not direct at all.
it was we're going to stop multiple times along the way. And so the rain is picking up, and the waves are getting choppy, and people are getting kind of nauseous and annoyed. But we go to Gili Meno, and then Gili Air, and then we stop on the island of Lombok, the big island, and we're like, what? This is taking a really long. Wow. We obviously did not. They're not honoring our tickets, or they made up some excuse. This is some scam. Like,
At this point, it's already like 45 minutes into the trip. We should have been halfway to our destination, and we were just getting started.
and we pretty quickly through these choppy, because remember earlier it was raining so heavily, and it lightened up like on our way to the terminal, but as we got in the boat there's still kind of a storm at sea, and the waves are all really choppy, and the boat keeps bouncing up and down. Well, or the boat's window in front of Shamar.
Okay, well, is this like. Yeah, yeah, okay. Did that happen on the way to Lombok? I can't remember.
Yeah, it
Oh,
did.
yeah, I did. So.
Yeah, on the way to Lombok. In fact, the moment we got onto the boat, people in front of us, they said their window wasn't open. And when you're sitting there waiting for the boat to start, there's a lot of diesel floating around. There's the motor brum, 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 for like 20 minutes, and there's fumes from diesel that are floating around. And so you want all the windows to be open. But as soon as you start, especially in this choppy, stormy water, it starts spraying in. And we're really low to, like, you can see the sea line like go up to your window.
Yeah.
And the window directly in front of Shamar wouldn't close. And at first we were like, wow, should we ask the people in front of us to like close the window?
Well, at first I kind of didn't mind because the wind was coming in, and I liked having a little bit of the spray on my face to keep me from feeling nauseous because we were just going up and down. And I was like, please don't close the window. I need fresh air. But very soon afterwards, as these waves got more and more choppy, the water was just like completely covering my seat. So.
Yeah, so she was getting sprayed, and the people in front of us they turned and they were like, yeah, the window's broken. It won't close. And so we kept going up and down at high speed through these different waves, and Shamar was getting sprayed. And earlier I asked her, I was like, do you want me to switch with you so that like you could be in the middle
No,
and
I already
and
felt so
she
nauseous.
was
I was
she
like, I
was like,
can't
no,
move.
I need to be.
By the
I
window.
need to have the window seat. Thank you very much. And then
So
she got soaked, and I was kind of
yeah, but so what I did is I grabbed the life jacket that was on the seat in front of me, and I had to hold it up in front of the spray. That was my little like move to Jimmy rig the situation, at least for a little while.
yeah. I thought it was funny. I was like, all right, you
It
want
worked. It
you want the
worked.
window seat, and take it.
No, but it worked. It kept the water off me for a while, and then eventually
Whatever.
the guy,
She had a pile of luggage on her lap. She had like her backpack,
my
this
mini
her
guitar.
mini guitar and a purse, and it was all getting soaked. And she was holding up this feeble life jacket, all because she didn't switch with me. And I would have taken it like a gentleman and been like, "All right, it's kind of fun to get soaked,"
Hey, I was
because
pretty proud of my little like Jimmy rig there.
you weren't smiling at the time.
Oh, I'm sure I felt horrible.
Yeah, but finally they called the guy over, and there's like two people who are working the back of the boat. One is this older silverback dude who was clearly of higher seniority because he was older, and he had this deflated, I think it was a goiter, like a big tumor thing behind one of his ears that looked all deflated, like he was infested with a giant parasite about the size of an orange behind his ear, and it was sagging, and he was like, ha 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 ha, okay, and he was kind of directing people to the back when they needed to vomit and
Handing out plastic
handing
bags.
out plastic bags. And then there was another guy who was he had like swimming trunks, and he had a wetsuit for his top half of his body with a like a t-shirt over it, and this skull and crossbones bandana that instead of the bandana tail going down like a ponytail over the back of your neck, over the top of your spine, it kind of went out the back of his head like a man bun. So he had this skull and crossbones man bun style bandana, and he was running in rail thin, and he was like running around like a goblin, handing out black plastic bags to anyone who looked like they were kind of sick, and he'd even pat them on the back when they were barfing.
You know, he was like pretty friendly.
No, you know what? They both were so used to this. They just knew the only thing you can do is to be spry and cheerful.
Yeah.
So that we had
Like, here you go, friends.
these like elves dispensing plastic bags to people who are vomiting, and he was the guy that was called over to like fix the window that was spraying in Shamar's face, and of course everyone had to get up slowly, awkwardly, bouncing up and down, and
And we
he
were
got in there,
bounced.
and I was like, how is he going to get that plastic window to move? Like when we're bouncing is he going to get a finger sliced off or crushed or something? But he made it happen after like 5 minutes of like really, really
Messing with
Jimmy
it.
rigging the thing.
Yeah.
He made it happen. Then he got out, and everyone kind of shuffled back into their seats. And
And he came and wiped it down my seat with
yeah,
his washcloth.
yeah, he came and wiped down a few seats where the spray was maximal. But then I looked around, and like there was one window where there was a big piece of plywood instead of a window, and there was a couple windows that had holes in them that were stuffed with like paper towels, like
know.
soaked paper towels, and everyone kept all around us were like, "Oh my god." Ugh. Their heads were down, and they kept asking for black paper or black plastic bags.
And then we would hit these like huge waves and the whole
Huge. I thought it was awesome because I was like, dude, this is like an amusement park.
well, and the whole
great.
boat would like jump in the air, and then all the girls would be like,
Yeah. Girls in the front, because you could see the water splash against the front of the boat. And they're like, ah, all at once. And I'm like, all right, here we go. Here we go. Oh, we're going down big. That means we're going to come up big and go down big again abruptly. And then, all at once. And I guess they're not trying to make anything happen by expressing their anxiety.
no, but it's scary though when you're out there and the boat's jumping around, and then
you're on the boat, you're fucked. dude. You are
Well, that's the
like
thing. Once you're on this thing, there's no getting off,
no.
And like I was thinking, I was out there, I was like, oh my god, this is like a horrible amusement park, a park ride where you can't get off. If you've ever been on one of those and they make you seasick, and then like it's maybe gonna last at most like 5 minutes, and you can get off. But this thing, there's no getting off of this boat, and oh man, it was so bad.
Instead of like the 2 hours of a direct line we were promised, it was like
4 hours.
4 hours, and it just wouldn't stop. And people started being like, "How much longer?" And they were speaking in broken English. They were like French people, Russian people who were like, "How much longer? Till finish." And the staff, the dude with the skull and crossbones bandana, who's like, 1 hour big water. Oh, 45 minutes extra finished. He meant like the worst of it is an hour longer. 45 minutes,
Less
is
waves, less
smooth
big waves.
sailing. And people were just like, oh, no. And they kept asking him over and over and over again. And people kept going to the back. And there was a French woman who was like, I need to go to bathroom. And they're like, whoa, whoa. And she's like, pee, 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 pee. And so they're like shuffling her through. Like they weren't surprised about anything. They're just like, yeah, this is the nightmare boat that we scam people into being on. And we just got to shuffle them to the back where in theory there was like a toilet, but I didn't see one when I got
don't
on.
know
There's
where.
like a couple of motors and an area next to the like smooth stepped metallic ladder.
If there was one, it must have been on like the back of the boat, that boat was jumping so much. I don't know how anybody would actually then use the bathroom without falling off the
I
toilet.
just assumed that everyone in the back was like peeing and vomiting,
Off the
like
side.
off the side or onto the floor into a grate. And I couldn't look back, and everyone else on the boat in the back, like 50% of the boat, kept like turning their heads and staring. And I would occasionally break down and I'd turn my head for a second and be like, what is going on? And then
No, I don't want to see
I
it.
don't want to see anything. Not that I could really. There's too many people blocking, kind of like looking defeated, like this is
Yeah.
the worst moment of their life.
And you know what's crazy is on the way to the Gili Islands from Bali, we had the most spectacular ride. We were on this big boat. It was a sunny day, blue skies. It was gorgeous. But before we had taken that ride, I had read reviews online of people who had taken these boats, and what they had written was exactly what we experienced today. And they were saying just like, oh my God, the boat was like tossing and turning, and people were barfing, and like I thought I was gonna die. So like today we basically had that kind of boat ride, and I never want to do that again.
I thought it was awesome, but yeah, I mean, of all the people going to the back, it was something like all of them were girls except for two guys. Yeah, there were two guys who like went to. I don't even know if they just needed some air or if they were actually that sick. But I think there's like a weird gender thing. Guys handle this better. But when we finally, well, maybe I should
Well,
save that later for later. But we, after all the vomiting and like,
well, wait, let me say something.
okay.
Well, so you were just saying guys handle it better. Maybe that's so. Like you were over there just reading on your smartphone,
I was reading.
like wasn't even bothering you.
The
You're just like,
person next to me was like, she was bent down at like a 90-degree angle with the not wait staff, but the worker of the boat, the guy with the skull and crossbones bandana, like patting her back, which was
yeah.
kind of remarkable because in this part of the world, you don't really touch people you don't know very casually. But
Yeah, so you're over there like it's not bothering you at all. You're just reading on your phone in a boat that's going up and down. I have no idea how you're doing that. And I'm over here like holding on for dear life because I'm somebody who gets car sick really easily. So seasickness also comes very easily. So I came up with this strategy, which was like I just made sure to look at the horizon. That's why I had to be by the window so I could see the horizon. And then this phrase came into my head. I don't know why, but it was like cowboys in the deep blue sea. And I don't know why. I guess because I felt like we were a bucking bronco going up and down. So I swear for 2 hours, 2.5 hours, I said this over and over like a like a mantra, just like Callaway's in the deep blue sea, Callaway's in the deep blue sea. And every time we hit a huge wave, I would just be like, yeehaw, in my head. This was like the only way I could deal with it, is I had to like come up with some story in my head. And it kept my focus on like having fun and adventure versus focusing on the fact that I felt nauseous, you know? So yeah, so this went on for, I think we were like, yeah, definitely on that boat for like 3.5, 4 hours. It was horrible.
Yeah. I was listening to Stefan Grappelli, like violin, jazz violin, and reading statistical studies about various stuff
I wanted to put
which
on,
is not very fun to describe in a podcast.
yeah,
But
I wanted to put on my headphones, but even just the thought of reaching into my purse and like looking and fumbling around, I knew if I did that, I would get seasick. So like the whole time I had no fun, no earphones, no music, and I was just like looking out the window and like breathing. I'd be like taking big breaths and then like releasing them slowly. You know, it was like I was doing everything in my power to hold any food in my stomach down.
see, on our ferry over to the Gili Islands, to begin with, it was almost all Russians, with a couple, I think, Chinese Malaysians, and on the way back, it was almost entirely Australians and UK nationals, with some French and a couple Germans sprinkled in. So it's kind of interesting. I think there's a seasonal thing that I'm still trying to wrap my mind around here. It's the end of the wet season, and the dry season is coming.
Yeah.
But it's kind of interesting to hear them describe it differently. Did you notice any?
Oh, I didn't know. I know. I was so in my own world of just trying to like keep myself together, you know. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, these are the kind of days when you're like, is travel even worth it? Like, it's just so horrible. You're just like, I don't even want to do this anymore. Ugh. Oh God, just to not be able to get off that boat and you're stuck in the middle of the ocean with nowhere to go. It is the worst.
So
But anyways, it turned out good in the end.
yeah, so there was a cluster of, I think, English people at the very front of the boat who would shriek every time we'd go into a wave. Oh, whoa, whoa, which I thought was funny. I mean, I feel bad for them that they had that much anxiety, but it did kind of add to the roller coaster experience.
Yeah.
And then there's a cluster of like six English. I think they were all girls. Yeah, all around me who were just kind of gossiping about like, oh man, we really got fucked over by this ride. This is a
Yeah.
giant scam. They were very loud about it and didn't give a fuck. Whereas earlier, when there were Russian passengers with us in any mixed experience, they'd be very careful to like mutter amongst themselves and not be overheard. So the English speakers tend to be a little more exuberant. And anyway, we roll into port, and it's the wrong port. How about that? Yeah.
Yeah, they said when we bought the ticket, they were like, "Oh, you won't change boats. It's the same boat the whole way." And after this horrible 4-hour passing, then we pull into what we think is like maybe the second to final port, and then they say, "Okay, everybody get off the boat." And we're like, "What?" So we had to get off the boat,
Yeah.
and we had to.
The person behind us was like, "Oh, you don't have to get off if you're going to Nusa Lembongan." And
But we did.
but then I asked, and they're like, "Yeah, you'll have to get off and talk to my friend who will take you to the next port."
So we thought we would just get off the boat and then quickly hop onto another boat. But oh no, that was not the case. They wheeled us into this like,
Person I talked to was like, and I told her like, "Oh no, we all have to go. Get off the boat. This does not go on to Lembongan." And she's like, "Oh yeah, we've been told lots of things." And no, we've been told everything, I think is what she said. So they took us off the boat, and then we had to wheel all of our luggage and take it all off, and like not very gracefully, like while the boat is rocking. And the dock isn't even a dock. It's like a bunch of floating materials all roped together, waving around. So we go there, and everyone's wrong about everything, and we kind of have to like constantly remind people, like, yeah, we're going here, yeah, and finally they drag us out to the front where we have to go through a gate, and they're like, oh, you got to pay an entry fee to this island, and we're
Which
thinking
was Nusa Penida at this
Nusa
point.
Penida, and we're both like, dude, we don't want to be on your goddamn island. We want to be on the other island, and but we had to pay it because what do you do? You're stranded, and it's like a government thing. So eventually, we we've got a bunch of vans to take all of the passengers of the boat into different directions. And so we piled all of our luggage onto this open air. It's like a flatbed truck with like a cover on the top, like a
It's
canopy,
almost like a trolley van or
like a
something.
trolley van.
So basically, we
And
found out that we would be taking the local boat and that they were going to take us in this trolley van across the island to the other port. And then from there, we would hop on the last local boat to Lembongan.
yeah,
So this was like
so they,
after a horrible passage to have to then go into like like a trolley van ride, and like like the streets in Bali are always very curvy, and there's like dogs running out and kids and motorcycles, so like even a street ride is like kind of nauseous in itself also. So it was horrible to come off that boat and then have to go on this extra ride.
for me, because I have a stomach made of steel,
Yeah.
it wasn't about that. It was about like the time wasted and the extra money
Yeah.
that we had to pay. But so they dropped us off on the wrong island and then made us pay a fee to be on the island. And then to, they drove us through this winding road that took like 20 minutes or
Yeah, it was
so
wild.
and took us
And
to another port so we could leave the wrong island and then
to the
go
local
to the
boat.
right island. And so when they took us to the exit port, they're like, all right, you gotta go quick, 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 go, go, go. Take all your rolly luggage and all of your Shamar's guitar and everything. And everyone else, for some reason, had their shoes off, and I didn't. And like, there's no dock. You have to
Because we
like,
had to wade into the water with our
you have
luggage.
to wade into the effing salt water with our luggage, like these giant heavy bags. And I've got a backpack and a rolly thing, and they're not even stuffed all the way. So
Rolly suitcase.
I'm proud of, what did I say? Rolly.
Rolly thing. I'm just clarifying.
Okay,
Rolly
yeah.
suitcase.
So I waited for the wave to like recede out, and I dashed on board with this giant rolly suitcase, and I made it, but with a lot of sand on my wet shoes. And that was the most beautiful part of the trip.
Well, then, yeah, once
Yeah,
we get on
because
these
there's
small
small
boats,
boats without big waves, and the storm had cleared up.
yeah, and so the small boats were really beautiful. The wind was in our hair, and we had these beautiful mountains in the distance and volcanoes, and the lighting was just so. So the small trip maybe took like 10, 15 minutes, if even, and it felt so good to have like fresh air again and to see the
It
scenery
was great. And there's these floating platforms of like water slides and wood structures, I think with bars on them,
out in the
which
water.
out in the water that it looks like a weird floating pile of trash.
But it's like a floating
Like,
bar with a water
yeah, I saw
slide.
some really big ones with no one on them.
I guess
And
people take boats out to those and
I
like
guess
party out there. I don't know.
it looks like a floating shack or something. It looks so ramshackle. Anyway, they took us to the right island, but to the wrong side of the island. And so we all had to do the thing where we jump into the water again. And this time I was like, dude, I'm taking my shoes and
Oh, because the
socks
water
off.
was even deeper here. So this one you
Yeah.
really had to wade into
And
land.
you have
It was
to,
like up to our knees.
and I had to take all my luggage at once. So I took my backpack, which has electronics in it, and my heavy bag, and jump into the water. But there's some rocks in the water. So I had to like take all this extra weight and jump onto these heavy rocks into the water and march ashore. March, what did I say? march ashore.
March ashore, yeah.
Yeah, march ashore. March ashore like a marine at Normandy. And some dude was like, hey, well, I'll combine you with two other people and you can go in the back of my crappy flatbed truck.
Yeah, and I'll drop you off at your
drop
hotel
you
on
off
the other side of the
on
island.
the other side of the island. I was like, wow, this is really elaborate considering we paid money to go directly from the first island to the right side of this island. And it's not his fault, but
It was like a whole scheme.
he wasn't. Although I got to say, the big ruby ring on his finger
Oh, I didn't
kind
see
of
that.
made me like, dude, you little hustler, little taxi flatbed truck hustler. But he had amber eyes and his front teeth were missing.
Yeah, he was a nice guy though.
He was nice.
Yeah, they're all nice.
Yes, we're out of the like Lombok, Gili Islands, Muslim area, and we're back in the Bali, Nusa Penida Hindu area. And I gotta say, the smiles are just instant here when you talk to anyone, including people with sleazy ruby rings and missing front teeth. And he piled us into the back of his truck with two other people who were on our elaborate journey. And the guy who was on the trip with his girlfriend in the back, he was like, what did he say?
Oh, we were
How
just.
many times did he
Oh, he
barf?
just said he got so sick on that boat. He was like, oh, we were all just looking at each other like, man, what did we just go through? Yeah, no, he said he got sick quite a few times.
He said that every time he looked at his watch, it was only like 1 or 2 minutes later.
Oh, I was doing the same thing.
And it was a
Every 5
nightmare
minutes
for
looking at my clock.
which I guess. So earlier I was saying that like women tended to barf and freak out more than the guys do.
But not in his case.
And there were a few exceptions, including him. And he was like, yeah, I barfed into my little black plastic bag 4 times. And
yeah, and so we were all really happy to get off that boat, and basically, and then we dropped them off at their place, and they were so relieved.
yeah, and then he took us to our place, and we had to keep going through all these banana plantations and rainforest with branches whipping into our faces, or my face anyway, and against the side of the open truck. My shirt got soaked from all the dripping, broken siding. Oh man, it was awesome. It was like a IMAX movie with like sprayers, like a fully integrated,
The real
yeah,
deal. Yeah.
full sensory experience. So I thought it was worth every penny, and I would happily do it again if I didn't have to worry about luggage, which is always a weird psychic drain to have to like. If it's just me, I don't care. But if I'm like kind of bumping into people with this big rolly luggage thing, like I find like the stress is too much.
Yeah, that is kind of annoying.
I can handle the waves and the barf.
But not all the luggage on top of it.
No.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, so earlier when I was in the boat, I was like, "Oh my God, is this even worth it? Is travel even worth it when it's this bad and you just feel this sick? Makes you question it." But I will say, when we pulled up to the place we're staying at, which by the way is a totally like budget place, nothing fancy, but it's right on the ocean. So when we pulled up to this place and we saw it and we saw the view, I was just like, oh my God, it's so worth it. This place is beautiful. The water is like this creamy blue color. And we got here right in time for the sunset. So we were able to basically go drop off our bags, go sit in these little like beanbag chairs right along the ocean, grab some beers and some food and just watch the sunset. And sitting there, it was all worth it. I wouldn't want to do it again, what we did today, but hey, in the end, we made it. It's a fun story. And oh man, I just loved this evening watching the sun go down.
This has been Thursday, April 13th, 2023, on the mystic island of Nusa Lembongan off the coast of Bali, Indonesia. And we'll talk to you next time.
See you next time.